Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger in a banana print hoodie shoved binoculars into her hands. "Saw you staring, crows," they muttered before vanishing into Seattle's gray drizzle. She almost tossed them, who carries optics, to a farmer's market, but then a flash of wings caught her eye. Cedar waxwings, iridescent as stained glass, gorging on overripe plums. 57, Martha hadn't tracked birds since childhood, but suddenly her jittery eco-grief had a focal point. That afternoon, Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger bumped into her, sending a brown arc skyward like some caffeinated distress signal. She stared, struck by how small disasters mirrored bigger ones, her eco-grief a slow leak, not a headline. 57, she'd begun folding laundry with grim focus of someone preparing for end, as if neat socks might soften climate collapse. Then came Flyer Farmers Market, Urban Bird Migration Project, track with us. Below, a smudged map of Seattle dotted with routes like veins. Martha hesitated, fingers brushing binoculars hung around her neck, her late husband's, still smelling of his aftershave. Back then, they joked about birdwatching being old folks' vibes. Now, clutching them felt like grabbing a lifeline. First count, she mistook a crow for a raven, tripped over a curb, and earned a sympathetic chuckle from a teen volunteer. But spotting a varied thrush, its orange stripe bold as a warning light, sent a jolt through her. Here was proof life still moved, stubborn as traffic. Each sighting became a pinprick of hope on that communal map, a counterweight to doom-scrolling. Her deepest fear? Becoming irrelevant, like those binoculars gathering dust. But birds didn't care about her age or clumsy steps, only that she showed up. Weeks in, Martha realized tracking wasn't just science, it was stitching herself back into world's ragged fabric, one feather at a time. Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger's elbow jostled her arm. Before she could mutter a protest, woman, wiry, sun-freckled, with binoculars dangling like a pendant, dropped to her knees, mopping latte with one hand while pointing skyward with other. Black-headed grosbeak, she whispered as if sharing state secrets. She squinted, blur of orange and black vanishing behind a condo tower. Her pulse, still rattled from spill, slowed. For months, headlines had left her gut knotted, glaciers calving, wildfires chewing through towns, but that flash of wings? Pure, uncomplicated wonder. Binoculars became her anchor. Ballard Farmers Market, she lingered near a folding table draped in migration maps where volunteers scribbled sightings on sticky notes. A college kid with a septum piercing taught her to distinguish cedar waxwings from starlings by their vibes, one's a jazz musician, other's a tap dancer. Creator fumbled first, her thumbs stiff from decades of typing reports, but soon learned to steady her grip, tracing swoop of a violet-green swallow like she was sketching in air. Her apartment windows morphed into a command center. Post-its bloomed across glass, tracking routes of neighborhood crows she nicknamed Breakfast Club for their dawn raids on dumpsters. When she spotted a rare yellow-rumped warbler in a parking lot maple, her whoop startled a barista. That evening, she presented her scribbled data a community center potluck, knees knocking. Freckled stranger, now her mentor, Gwen, gave a thumbs up from back. Grief hadn't vanished. Some nights, she still woke gasping, imagining her granddaughter's world parched and cracking. But now she carried proof in her pocket, a creased notebook charting how urban birds adapted, how life stubbornly rerouted. Binoculars weren't just lenses, they framed a question: what if resilience looked less like a mountain and more like a sparrow stitching a nest from scraps? One drizzly Tuesday, she crouched beside a rain garden, tallying robins. A teen in a Save Bees hoodie plopped down, offering homemade cookies. "Heard your lady who knows where cool birds party," she said. Martha grinned, wiping mud on her jeans. Future, it turned out, had feathers and it didn't mind soggy knees. Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger bumped into her, too busy staring their phone to notice a woman holding binoculars like some suburban pirate. 57 years old and suddenly a cliché, except those binoculars weren't for birdwatching as a hobby. They were her weapon against gnawing dread that climate reports left in her gut. Seattle's gray skies mirrored her mood most mornings, but today, stubborn streaks of sunlight pushed through. She wiped coffee off her boots, muttered something uncharitable about oblivious tech bros, and marched toward Community Board Farmers Market. A handmade flyer flapped in wind. Urban Bird Migration Map, your eyes needed. Below it, a grid of sticky notes tracked sightings: goldfinches dodging skyscrapers, ospreys nesting on cell towers. Someone had drawn a frowny face next to fewer swallows this year? Martha scoffed. She'd spent decades teaching biology, watching students glaze over terms like biodiversity collapse. Now here she was, a retired woman with creaky knees, scribbling dates and locations like some overeager scout. But active noting each sighting, a flicker of wings, a trill cutting through traffic noise, stitched her back into world's fabric. Data was a lifeline, not just for birds but for her. Missteps came, of course. She once logged a crow as a raven, mortifying, spent an hour tracking a mystery bird that turned out to be a kite tangled in power lines. Teens bus stop had laughed. Yet each mistake carved space for curiosity over despair. Meetups, women her age traded tips, best spots for herons, how to differentiate sparrow calls from car alarms. They swapped stories too, not about grandchildren or hip replacements, but about way a hummingbird's dive could make a person forget just for a second that everything was burning. One evening, hunched over her notebook, Martha realized map wasn't just recording losses. It revealed stubborn pockets of life adapting, surviving. Her binoculars, once a prop for suburban eccentricity, became proof she hadn't given up. World was changing. So was she. Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger bumped her arm, sending scalding liquid toward her favorite thrifted boots. She barely noticed. I stayed locked on a flash of wings, a western tanager, blazing sunset orange against Seattle's steel-gray sky. Binoculars trembled in her grip. That bird wasn't supposed to be here in November. 3 months ago, eco-grief had wrapped around her ribs like barbed wire. News headlines screamed ice caps melting, forests burning. Her grown kids rolled their eyes when she muttered about doomscrolling. Then, on a whim, she joined a citizen science project tracking urban bird migration. Now her frayed spiral notebook bulged with scribbles: ruby-crowned kinglet, Green Lake, 10:14 a.m., first sighting in 12 years. Farmers' market meetups became her secret weapon. Under striped awnings, between baskets of bruised peaches, she traded notes with other bird nerds. A college kid showed her how to log sightings on an app. Martha's hands shook less now when she lifted those binoculars, not just tools, but lifelines. Then came audacious idea. City Hall's community exhibit board stood empty, begging for vibes. Martha spent nights collating her data into a hand-drawn map, Seattle's unexpected guests, tracking how species were shifting neighborhoods as temperatures climbed. She tacked it up beside blurry phone snaps of warblers perched on parking meters. Opening night, a guy in a Patagonia vest scoffed. Cute hobby. Martha's cheeks burned, but she straightened her birds aren't real pin, a gag gift from her grandson, and pointed to a hotspot near freeway. See this? Cedar waxwings used to avoid concrete. Now they're nesting in billboards. That's climate change chewing through their habitats. Then twist. A local journalist snapped her gripping binoculars like a warrior queen, silver curls haloed by gallery lights. Next morning, Martha's face grinned from Seattle Times, her map dubbed Aging Activist Schools City on Silent Crisis. Emails flooded in, teachers begging for copies, a researcher requesting her raw data. Even Patagonia vest lingered after crowd left, sheepishly asking where to buy decent optics. Laughter bubbled up as she fumbled with her car keys later. 57 years old and she'd just gone viral for bird talking. But under streetlights, checking app one last time, warmth spread through her chest. For first time in years, Martha didn't feel like a bystander to catastrophe. She was mapping it. Binoculars swung from her neck as she walked home, lighter. Somewhere overhead, wings beat against wind. I finally belong here. Martha's coffee splattered across pavement when a stranger bumped into her, muttering about another scorching summer. That moment, sticky shoes, bitter loss, snapped something inside. Next morning, she dug out dusty binoculars from a junk drawer, marched to her tiny balcony, and pointed them a scraggly crow. Not exactly David Attenborough material, but it was a start. Seattle's concrete jungle became her safari. She logged every sparrow, jay, and that one cocky seagull that stole a vegan muffin right from her hand. A habit? She whispered puns to pigeons. Fly me to moon or lease to that dumpster. Notebooks piled up, stuffed with scribbles. March 14th, Mrs. Beaky, red-tailed hawk, returned. Brings twigs to same rooftop. Divorced? Empty nester? Kindred spirit. Farmers' market meetups turned her into an accidental celebrity. Martha's migration map, a riot of pushpins and yarn on a thrifted corkboard, drew crowds. Teens, grandmas, even a tattooed barista with a hummingbird neck tattoo leaned in as she traced routes with a chopstick. See this warbler? Flew 3,000 miles just to yell my begonias. If she can hustle, so can we. Laughter fizzed, but under it, solidarity. Climate grief didn't vanish, but it shrank, outnumbered by sparrows and shared scones. By summer's end, her binoculars dangled from a rainbow strap, badges jingling, each a tiny victory. She guided neighborhood kids on duck detective walks, showed retirees how to ID ravens by their nevermore vibes. Age? Just a number scribbled in birder logs. Purpose? That was everywhere, in way a starling flock swirled like a living poem in email from a stranger. Your map got me off my couch. Now I chase owls. Thank you. Seattle's winds carried change, not just carbon. Martha's grief had wings now. Grab those beanos, your wild neighbors are waiting. Plot their comeback.